Okay, I left off last time with Freddie Graves, F.A. Graves' healing testimony, and I think I'm going to start at. He's just had a experience of what some might call sanctification, where his room was lit up with the light of heaven that he'd never experienced, and he was flooded with, a joy and a peace in his soul. And it came from total yielding to God. That's what he says here. So, and also, of course, he saw the enemy and Jesus contending for his body. And though the blows would hit his body from the enemy, he didn't feel him. So it was the song that he wrote known as I'm Resting My Case in His Hands came from this experience. So something interesting that I didn't know is that he didn't write songs until after this healing and deliverance from epilepsy. It was through these pains, trials, and sufferings that his songs came. After my severe trial, God had a great and blessed surprise for me. To the delight of myself and friends, God enabled me to write gospel songs. Room for All was the first, and others followed. One day, while stopping for dinner in Wyndham, I learned that Evangelist Smead was conducting services in a church nearby. I went to the church, and during the service, he held up the Bible saying, "Get the honey out of the rock." That remark stayed with me as I drove on my way. And as it turned over in my mind, the words of the song, "Honey in the Rock," came to me. Before I slept, the song was complete with words and music and has since been printed in millions of copies. From this incident, I learned the importance of being in the place where God wants you, ready for a blessing from Him. Got my overalls on today. Okay. So he's saying it's important to be in the right place. If you have read Expectation Corner, you will remember that there was a great number of packages on a shelf marked "Missed Blessings." When the guide was asked the meaning of this inscription, he answered, "These are packages of blessings intended for people who failed to be in their place to receive them." I have often thought that if I had not gone to that little church, and if the speaker had not said what he did, that hymn might never have been written. I was in a home where I saw on the piano a motto Rich read, "Nailed to the cross for me," and soon God gave me the hymn, "He was nailed to the cross for me." Have you a motto in your home? On another occasion, I was seeking God's guidance regarding an important step and prayed, "Oh God, if this is your leading, give me a beautiful hymn." The answer he sent was the hymn, "He'll Never Forget to Keep Me." These and other of my hymns have since been compiled and published in book form under the title The New Gift. Daniel Webster was once with a little company who were speaking of the Bible verses which were most precious to them. Some spoke of the 23rd Psalm, others of the Sermon on the Mount, others of the 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians as being their favorites. Finally, Mr. Webster was asked what he considered the greatest passage in the Bible. He replied, Habakkuk 3:17 and 18. "Although the fig tree shall not blossom, neither shall fruit in the vines, the labor of the olive shall fail, and the field shall yield no meat, the flock shall be cut off from the field, and there shall be no herd in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation." One day, as I was driving into the town where I'd placed my savings in the bank, I was startled when I read the sign, "This bank is closed." Alas, for the fate of my few hundreds of dollars. As I started for my home, Brother Holmes said, "Goodbye. Remember Habakkuk 3:17 and 18. As I drove along, I took out of my Bible and read these verses, and presently music to carry it to hearts in trial came to me. I did not lose my money, he says. As I close this account of God's wonderful dealings with me in the great deliverance from the demon of epilepsy, my heart overflows with thankfulness and great joy that now, after 30 years of complete victory, I can write this testimony for other afflicted ones. I am reminded of the first official message that was flashed over Morse telegraph. What hath God wrought? For he wrought in me so marvelously, is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us. And that's Ephesians 3:20. So there is here something called the wounded bird. I don't know if that was, it must have been a piece of poem or something, but he puts that there. But that is the end of F.A. Graves' healing testimony. And it would be a few years later after his healing that he would go to, I think, Zion, Illinois, and actually meet Dr. Dowie there, who had prayed for him. And that's where he met Vina, who became his wife. And the next testimony is Vina's testimony. And I will just read the first paragraph and then later do another video of hers. Mrs. Graves' testimony. It is with joy that I wish to add my testimony of God's mighty power to that of my husband, for truly he hath done great things for us. I was born November 20th, 1867, of Christian parents, and grew up on my father's birthplace near Geneva, New York. I was never strong, being overcome by sickness often, and had a curvature of the spine from childhood. I was a dressmaker, and while sewing away from home took the measles, which developed all that was not right in my body. Kidney trouble increased, and my eyes were so bad that I was obliged to stay in a darkened room and wear heavy shades, and finally the doctor feared that the right eye would have to be removed. I mean, this is a caseload of medical problems. So she was always had a problem with sickness. She had the curvature of the spine. While she was away as a dressmaker, she caught the measles from someone, and it did all kinds of things in her body. Kidney trouble increased. Her eyes were so bad they thought she had to stay in a darkened room, and they thought an eye would have to be removed. However, gradually my eyes became somewhat better, but I had to wear strong glasses and be very careful about the light, as I suffered constant pain in my head. That sounds like a migraine, but maybe they didn't know what a migraine was back then. I don't know. And the pain in my back had never ceased since I had the measles. It seemed as if I could not give up to blindness, of which there was great danger. But our prayers were heard, and sight was left, though so impaired that I was unable to distinguish a single feature of my dear mother's face. So basically, she was almost blind. Okay. My condition grew worse all the summer of 1893, and in November I was stricken with convulsions as though I had been shot. My physician pronounced it as an acute attack of Bright's disease. These attacks were liable to occur at any time in the advanced stages of the disease. How I suffered! Yet God, in his mercy, preserved my reason, so that I never lost consciousness, even though unable to speak. So I'm thinking if she's having convulsions, that kind of sounds like seizures.
And that's from the blood.
I was very low for days, but skill, excellent care, and prayer enabled me to sit up again at the end of 6 weeks. Very slowly, I gained sufficient strength to keep up about the house through the winter. And of course, she still lives at home. you know, she still got her parents and her family around her. It was 4 months before I could step up a step, and longer before I could ride. And of course, back then you were on horse and buggy after that attack. So it took 4 months to recover. The doctor put me on a strict diet, but in spite of all that was done to relieve me, the pain never eased in my back. And I grew worse again during the summer of 1894, and my physician was very grave. August 28, 1894 was the last time that I was in a carriage or away from home for 2 years and 8 months. I asked my physician to tell me the plain truth, which he did, and I thanked him for it. He said I might die at any moment, or with great care might live for some time. September 1st, 1894, I was again confined to the bed, suffering intense pain and becoming very nervous. For 7 weeks I lay there, having several sinking spells with my heart, the pain in my back becoming worse and my eyes again failing. The doctor advised me to try to sit up some, so Father carried me in his arms and placed me in an easy chair filled with pillows, and there I sat a part of each day for 3 weeks, gaining strength enough to stand on my feet and take a few steps. November 7th, I was not so well. In fact, it seemed as though I could never live through the day. Toward night, my heart became very uncertain, first quick, then slow. It continued to run higher and higher, feeling as if something had given out, and it was literally running away, until 138 beats a minute were registered. Father hastened for the doctor, and they worked over me for hours. As I was sitting in the chair, when my heart ran up, they dared not move me. After hours of hard work and much prayer, it began to slow down within bounds. The reaction they feared came toward morning, and my heart grew slower and fainter until 50 beats were registered to the minute. I was unable to speak, and soon the pulse could not be felt in my wrist. Oh, the agony! How the dear ones worked over me. The doctor did not leave for hours. And of course we depended on him, for we had never heard of the better way, capital letters, the better way. All right, I'm going to stop at that, and
This is part
I
3.
will continue with part 4. This is Freddie's testimony is in part 1, 2, and 3, and this is part 3, Vina's testimony, and I will continue her testimony in another video. Thank you.